Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. I thought no one can hear me.
Hi, Osha.
No,
Good evening.
Hi.
No, I was trying to unmute, but some other screen popped up.
Okay.
So hi, good evening. How are you?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, all good. Good evening, all.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Hi, good evening. Oh, again, wait a minute.
Good evening.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
yes,
Yep.
Great. Pardon me for this, IST, EST confusion. I think, it came as a third and it's also show as AM. I don't know why. I need to get help of Devji, I believe, to plan this thing because previously he planned this thing still, 30th of November. So the timing and everything were perfect. Even Lina ma'am got confused last time. So, that's a kind of challenge I believe we have. Let's see. Let's try to sort that thing out. Uh, should we wait or should we start? I don't know. Just give us a couple of minutes. Hmm. So, how does, quality for a BA looking like to you? Anyone to share their thought process? Quality control and quality assurance as in contribution from BA.
Till now, what I understood is like if we are new to the company,
Mhm.
We need to follow some protocols and we need to follow some policies and procedures. So
Right.
it's not only for BA, I believe it's or everyone. When you are joining a new company, you'll be
Perfect.
given a template for QA and QC, which you have to follow it.
Right, exactly. And these are organizational policies and procedure which
Yes.
as an employee we need to follow. So it's not just for the QA, but what I'm trying to do, because we are as far as we are not freshers, right? We have some experience in our life. If not IT, be it something else. So what I'm trying to impose here, these are the certain things which we need to which matter whenever we join. We are intelligent enough or mature enough to understand such things. Why I want to guide you on this, because for everything you can just ask HR, or if there's something called buddy scheme, normally, as I told you, right? If there's a buddy scheme, uh, that buddy will guide you for all these nitty gritties, all these where do you get coffee, where do you get these document, how the cloud is all accessible, what are the maintenance procedures, and how can you leverage somebody for help. So these are the kind of organizational support which is already there, so you don't have to struggle for this day in day out, and that's a normal thing. So as an BA, as we work on a critical job, and normally we work with very senior people, they have certain tendency to get things on time, or they need to crash the thing. That's how they work, right? uh, what they do, they normally try to pressurize each and everybody to get things done before time. Means there are lots of course, there are lots of what you can say, communication from senior people to normally for each and every employee, so that they normally work within time. That's how they put it. I want to get everything in time, and those kind of scenario, that's what they play to. So how do we leverage these resources during such critical time, or during such what I can say, challenging period? That's what I want to make sure in terms of what are we trying to achieve, or what are we trying to support to. So these kind of scenario does make you a bit what you can say, sometimes challenging. So you should have, or you should know at least where to go for the support. And these are the few things which you can go to the support. And there are QA QC guys, or rather QA QC teams, frankly speaking. There's an audit team normally, there's a normally security team, there's a normally exit there are certain procedure for fire drill, procedure for at challenging times how to exit office, and all those things, right? Like we here in plane, right? Whenever at times plane lands on a water, there are certain exits which we need to follow and all, right? Similar things, whenever you normally join an organization, there are certain policies and procedure which we should abide to. That's a kind of normal expectation whenever a new employee joins. So as an BA, as in part of employee, I need to follow such structure. They'll tell you during induction, but God forbid if anything missed out, we have to look for certain certain HR executive which you can get coupled with, so that he or she will guide you. And that's the normal thing which we should adopt to, because actually there is a bit of cultural difference also. The way Indian company works, we have worked very closely. We don't have something called private thing or privacies standing in between us. In US, normally, even in corporate culture, there's a bit of what you can say, a big bubble of privacy. If I don't want to what you can say, uh, if I don't want to make you fear, but it's something, it's really troubled me, frankly speaking, as a person. And that's why I don't feel the US is a really good, I'll not say working culture, but overall social culture there. That's how I feel it. But yeah, I am totally wrong, I can be totally wrong. So please try to understand from a perspective of how do we born and brought up, and how do we work in the culture, right? So there's a bit of difference here. So I'm trying to make you more pro to adapt to such culture, and this is one of the thing which we need to care about, which we need to think it through. Okay, does that make any sense? I know this is more of cultural thing than organizational thing, but yes, as an Indian, we need to watch a step ahead, or watch a step, especially in this direction, to adapt to certain, certain these environments. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Actually, to be on the shoes in American offices, we have to be like one step ahead. Like we work a lot. I mean,
Right.
that's my experience. We work a lot. We are like workaholic. But
I
when it
know.
comes
That's
to
right.
this, when it comes to the social, like okay, gathering and all, then if we are not comfortable also, then we have to pretend okay, we are pretty comfortable and we are very
Yes.
confident,
Very
and okay,
rightly
we
said.
are very party person. Yes, you
Yes.
have to do all those things.
Even you should start, saying happy weekend from Thursday afternoon itself.
Oh yeah, it's like almost TGI Friday, so
And in
it's
India, yeah, in India, nobody cares if you have a happy weekend or whatever it may be. They don't care and they don't wish you. And even in
yes.
India, you don't normally get wished good morning or good evening, even if you see that face for the first time in the morning or something like that sort. In
No, so
US, that's a normal
that's
culture.
wrong. No, no,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. You feel
If
that way, yes. But in India, that's the culture. That's the way we are brought up. Because even we know Indian community is more of centered around family and friends.
yes,
US community, they don't have. I'll not say they don't have. They are more independent in nature by default. The way they born and brought up. Even if you look at the smaller kids, whenever he or she is 6 month old, they'll have their separate bedroom, and that's why they have nightmares. Believe me, means I've seen quite a few good friends or friends of mine telling this story. They have this nightmare because 6 month is not a period to have that child staying in a separate room. That's what I feel personally. I might be wrong, and there are really great personalities here which can explain in depth how it's suitable to normal bringing up and all those things. But that's the difference. In US, you are independent. That's the first thing. Second thing, you have to leverage from something. The way we are brought up, we are basically kind of leveraging up ourselves with the family. सुबह कोई उठ के चाय बनाता है, मैं चाय पीता हूँ. Normally this is what happens, and whoever gets the first will get the tea prepared, and for everybody. So मैं मेरे लिए नहीं बनाता हूँ. I'll cook it for the family. That's another thing which we have. In US, you have your coffee, your tea. If you like tea, you'll have your tea machine separate, your coffee machine separate, and all those things. So this is a bit of difference, and that's why we need to walk extra step to get connected, or to enjoy the company. And that's how I live there, and I enjoyed it. It's not like I have not enjoyed it, but that's the difference, and that's the type of gap which we need to fill in. That's how I feel it. And as an QA/QC to BA is a need, because we need to understand this environment and to get adapted to the organization culture. And as in BA, I normally work with very senior persons, might be Indian, American, French, Japanese, whatever it may be, but we need to get attached to him, because that's how we work, right? We need to build some informal channels to understand. See, understanding vision is requires all these things. Whenever you talk to very senior people, you need to build some informal channel. You need to understand the person's background as well. That's why I say, when you talk about TQM, when you talk about fishbone diagram, these are very near to certain cultural people, right? So these things we should have at least know how. And if you are going to have some boss, mostly like from a certain culture, we need to get aligned to the overall thought process, because that will give me an edge to work as a BA working is not a complex, but understanding that vision and explain it to the requirement. This is our job, right? So have to understand the person, as in what he thinks and where he's coming from and what he is expected out of you. This is the most important part. And the culture and the background plays a very crucial part here. Try to understand me as a friend rather than a trainer or something like that, because as a friend, that's what I'm trying to share with you. And all these policies and procedures have made it towards them. So we have agility, which talks about collaboration, working together, talking more often, getting to know the team, getting to know the visionary, and so on and so forth. This is how the philosophy have been brought up now. We are moving towards more Indian philosophy, because in India, your boss can come to your house anytime, believe me, and you have to offer coffee, tea, lunch, dinner, whatever it may be, and that's a normal scenario. We don't feel bad in that. Forget about boss, be it office boy, be it some salary clerk. If he comes to you, you normally offer him tea, lunch, dinner, as per that time suits. But in US, that's not a custom. Okay, because consuming anything at any other place they have really strict, what I can say, measures or aversions from such scenarios. Correct me if I'm wrong. Means you're right now there. I'm not in US. Time might have changed, but that's how the difference. And we need to understand these things. Now, quality processes and policies play an important part here because we don't normally talk to anybody day in day out. So I need to understand what type of policies and procedure as an organization we follow, and as an individual I have a favoritism too. Could you understand the difference in this? Understanding in personality of the client I am talking to, whose vision I am exploring, whose vision I am expanding, right? Whose vision I am trying to put it to the SRS. And there's a culture in my organization. There's a strict quality processes applied within my organization which I need to follow. There could be contradiction, there could be confusion, but me as a person, I have to walk some extra step and get all this clarified. Could you understand me now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
that's true. I
Rudra, you want to say something?
I have one question.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so let's see, we started working as a BA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, this bookish knowledge, we are pretty good in that. So we are going in an office and are normally, if you are starting your career, I don't believe that we will be directly going and meeting our stakeholders or the clients. So we will be getting the projects from the program manager or the project manager. Am I correct?
That's right.
Okay, so if we are getting the projects from him, so he'll be providing us all the details, and on that we will be making SRS. So normally, how many pages SRS will be, like 2 pages, 3 pages? How will decide on that? This is
Sure.
our take,
Good
or the
question.
manager will let us know?
Good question. Really great questions. Okay. Again, I'll say this depends on organizational, culture, or because some organizations, rather some groups within organizations, have a lengthy documentation practices. And this is not pertinent to the agility or any of the security or quality model we follow. This is basically the way they're working from so many years, because you're joining a group which is working together for so many years, right? If not months. If you join a startup, that's a different scenario. Then you can set up your policies and procedures. But normally you join a big company like Infosys. They have been working since last, how many? 23 years or so. So they have the matured processes within themselves. They have a process of saying the first SRS draft should be at least 10 to 15 pages. And I'm talking, sharing the truth with you, frankly speaking. That's the normal scenario in Infosys. If you go to Patni, they have a bit longer SRS. They try to be a bit descriptive. So we have something like 15 to 20 pages. But let's not, try to count pages. Let's try to understand the domain. Let's try to understand the complexity of a solution. That will make sure whatever we are trying to do is covered completely. And that's the important thing. Even if you have 1 page lesser or 1 page more, that doesn't matter that much. Then you miss something. So what I'll try to do, I'll put some extra pages. I'll try to explain it in my examples, the way I explain, right? Try to give an example. Try to understand the problem from an example's perspective and add a couple of more pages. You have to delete. Yeah, that's nothing like it. Let's try to understand the organization, specifically understand the approver. I think that's the most crucial part here, because unless and until approver feels that you have done the right thing, and yeah, there could be extra, yeah, he can kill those extra paragraph, extra lines or something like that. So those scenarios fine as an new employee. So what you'll say, you are prone to put in efforts, because if you produce less, if you show him lesser pages, there'll be a bit kind of what you can say, that'll reflect not in not that the best possible scenario. So that's how I look at it. That's my personal suggestion. But let's join, and that's why we have something called on-job support. What we do, we try to understand the culture. We do a bit of research, because mostly we have employees there, and where are you going to start? I believe there will be a couple of employees working from Guru School there. So please don't feel left out. That's the first thing. Second thing is, we need to try to understand the culture, try to understand particularly the approval authority or the reporting authority. That's how we call it, RO, reporting officer. Means you might report to program manager, project managers, or a project lead. It depends on the length and breadth of the overall project and the assignment. Normally, whenever you join, you'll take at least 1 or 2 weeks to get your laptop, see it and everything. But nowadays, yeah, as Corona, you might go there, have an induction online like this for a week or so, and then they'll schedule your appointment. So when you go to office, they'll give you all those, cup, mugs, t-shirts, if they give you, and they give you your laptop, or might be earlier. Means depends on the policy and procedure they have formed for COVID as well. So they'll hand over these things, and there they'll give you a certain HR executive to coordinate in case you have any challenge. So nowadays, he or she will be your point of contact, and many of the times you get a link in your email saying click this, and then there'll be a video coming to you saying this is the this is how you normally work with the corporate cloud, this is how you normally work with the what I can say, special request, leave request, and all those kind of scenarios. That's what's happening right now. But let's try to understand. Let's try to get adapt to the solutions whenever we join, and we are there to help you. So please, don't feel left out. We'll be there.
No.
And,
My question is like, because I think most of us, I can talk about myself, like I do have experience in staffing industry. There we don't write so much. So I
Right.
am not in a habit of writing 2, 3, 4 pages. Okay. We'll have this maybe 1 page about the candidate, about the manager and all that thing. We'll write. So
Right.
that'll be very different experience for me. And like, how comfortable we will be writing, because when we saw the Rudra's presentation,
Mhm.
he had used some very solid words, no?
Right.
So,
No, one of the best presentation. I really, and he's the most younger in our audience. Believe me, the way
the
I
way
feel
he
it.
talks,
I've not seen you, or you're not seen me, but the way I feel, and I really appreciate the effort he put in, and it's really great. Yeah, I can
the way
understand.
he talked, because I think he's born and brought up here. If we
Right.
want, then also we cannot, I mean, that will say we cannot copy him. That's the truth. Okay, so
Mhm.
we have our own way of talking, we have our own way of presentation. And if I need to write the SRS, I'll not be able to write with such a heavy words.
Don't think it like that. See, let me, we did workshop, right? And
Yes,
there, you have created the HLD, right? The
yes.
HLD have those entities called problem and called solution. So what I can do, I'll take one functionality, I'll write 3-4 lines on that.
Okay, bye.
Simple.
Okay.
Sorry, Sheetal, do you want to say something? Okay, sorry. I think there was some background noise, so that's why I asked. So, how to expand that, I'll teach you. Don't worry. And this is the right question, because we have to walk that extra mile, and this is what that extra mile is all about. What I'm trying to do here, I need to fill in some page, and we are good at, as an Indian, we are really good in finding excuses and filling pages. Believe me, that's our culture. That's
Sir,
how we
I am concerned because I'm very bad. मेरे को एग्जाम में भी अगर कोई बोलता था ना 5 पेज का वो लिख दो, मैं तो 3 पेज में ही परेशान हो जाती थी सर.
Okay. Believe me, I've done B in computer technology, and now I'm doing law. In law,
Oh wow.
we have 45-page paper. You have to write in 3 months. So I was literally practicing to write these 40 pages within these 3 hours basically. I've practiced. Believe me, means I've written at least 3 or 4 notebooks just to make sure I can write. Because I've been typing so long, it's really difficult to write down. Means sometimes whenever you're writing, you tend to forget the spellings. And even in WhatsApp, you might have seen, I have spelling
Yes.
errors and all. This is what we happens. But believe me, you have to use certain techniques, like how to add these pages. So just get your problem statement, paste it in a Google, try to find some words, paste it in a notepad, try to put in your words, try to understand the words, try to make it a bit different, and paste it in a SRS. That's what I will do.
If you
So,
have any SRS handy with you, will you be able to share with us?
yes,
So
yes, definitely we'll do that. Rather than that, okay, let me tell you another thing.
Actually, this is
Um,
what I asked you long ago, if you remember.
Yeah, you asked that. I can
Yes,
remember. I can remember. Sure, and we will do it. And rather than, again, I'll say, Usha ma'am as a person, Sheetal as a person, even Rudra as a person, we want to have our own touch. Okay, so for length and breadth, you're right. We will share that thing, but I want to put that to the end, because I don't want you to get prejudiced by those things. Because normally, whatever you call review, your reporting officer will say, "Yeah, okay, have a look at this and try to use these words." And this is happens. Don't feel bad about that. This is how the IT fellow works. They have certain likings for words, and we normally tend to use unnecessarily heavy words. And same with the legal profession. I don't know why, but they do it. That's a kind of culture, or kind of habit or manufacturing defect, what you can call. But yeah, we do, and so this will happen. So it's not what I can say. I want to prepare yourself for such thing, and don't feel bad about it. This is how things are, right? And there are certain things which we need to adapt, which we need to learn. Okay, and that we will learn eventually. But to start with, whenever somebody reviews something, he or she has his own inputs, right? And we need to take it positively than negatively, because certain things, me as a person, are a bit different in thought process. Like you said, I have not written so many pages, but now you're not writing, you're typing most often. So you can do cut, copy, paste. You can get what you can say, inspired, leverage, or whatever you want to call it, use some pretty word and get this thing filled out with one sentence. You can write in 4 to 5 different ways: active wise, passive wise, this work, that work, and those kind of scenario. I believe we know English in and out, so we have to be descriptive in certain scenarios. So whenever we talked about business summary is smaller. When you talk about business requirements, we need to explain each and every of such requirements, right? So requirements should be descriptive normally. So one requirement, one para, and if there are normally 10 requirements, it'll at least carry 4 pages. And that's how that 10-15 page length can be acquired. And yes, we have to practice for that, and we will do practice for that. In the end, we have these workshops, and that was this workshop are for. Whatever output as BA we create, we need to make sure it's in line with the industry standard which is followed currently, right? There are many industry standard changes, and if you go to some agile XP type of company, you don't have to you don't have to write documents. They'll say, whatever you have, just share the HLD with me, and if you have any use case diagram for this one of the complex requirement, do spend some time and let's discuss HLD and use case diagram. They will not have SRS. They'll just have one image library kind of scenario, and they'll have a folder of a project name where they dump in this diagram. This also happens, but this is what I feel kind of challenging. Every time you don't refer to the diagram, sometimes you need to read. So SRS is the best combination for a BA, and which can be traced to the FRS. FRS is always a text document. FRS couldn't be image, because you have to go line by line, right? Whenever you try to create something, when you try to develop something, you have to refer to a descriptive page. Let's try to understand from an example. I order a folding table. We order, right? Online in US. In US, you don't have carpenter to get your table fixed or built, right? So we order a table, and there's an instruction booklet of 3 to 4 pages. Which screw goes where? Which plank number A, B, C go where? This kind of scenario. If you're missing those 2 pages, right, you'll be in a soup. You couldn't actually get that thing done. Could you relate to this problem? Have you ever had this problem with you?
Yeah.
So those pages, those few text pages are really important for me to refer to, because the creator has an idea, the development team has an idea of creating a table out of these planks, screws, nut, bolts, whatever you want to call it, this thing. And they have perfect measures, length and breadths, and perfect alignment for these things. So I need to adapt to this. To adapt to that, I need to have some reference text and some images. Yes, this combination works very effectively whenever you try to create certain new things, whenever you try to build certain new things. Even if even if you try to assemble, you can use a word called assembly rather than create or build. But in that scenario also, you have to be bit descriptive. The text is really important with those images. So SRS is a combination, or what I can say, a median of in between images and text, and that's how we build SRS. And SRS is referred throughout the life cycle of project, product, or services, whatever we are trying to implement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. this is, this is good, because we need to describe, we need to understand these sometimes as in BA. What are the challenges, what are the day-to-day things I'm going to face? So this is really constructive, believe me, and we'll adapt to this. We'll basically get aligned with this as well whenever we do workshop. And workshops are the really important part. So whenever I say do this homework, that's really helps out to understand you BA as in functionality, me BA as a trainer, or whatever experience I have as an BA. How do we come together as close as possible, so that whenever you join, there will be least jitters, least challenges, right? And we start working with our full personality, because
So
my
I had one
personality.
question. I'm
Go ahead,
sorry, I
please.
had a question.
No problem. Go ahead.
Out of these, do we need to have all of these certifications, or which one is the most expected certification that companies would ask for?
Normally BA, see, okay, BA is a very generic skill set. Generic in the sense, let's try to understand from whatever we gather for a BA. I collect requirement, right? I do write down these requirements, I do elicit this requirement, I build a document, and I get it approved and released. That's a normal workflow I followed, right? Now there are certain tool sets which I need to use case diagram, Excel, you know the agility, the Scrum part of it, the HLD, and so on and so forth. So if you look at these terms, these are pretty generic. So a BA might not be a master of any one of these, because the most thing which is crucial here are the requirement. So understanding personality, understanding business thought process is the most important part here. Okay, now whenever I'm talking about what I can say, certifications, my personal traits are the most important at a crucial part as far as BA goes. Now having said that, there are many such environmental things, right? Like I talked about BA, QA, Scrum, the business analyst, there are certification available, but unless you have at least 1 or 2 years of experience, showing is different thing, getting experience and then doing certification is another. But yes, you can do BA certification from PMI. You can do Scrum certification, which will be the most easiest one, so that as an BA you will add a value. And Scrum is a kind of disciplined procedure. So you have certain checklist which you need to tick and get it certified. It's not easy as it the way I'm speaking. It's quite difficult, but still they have fixed procedure. But as far as BA goes, you have to it's a kind of philosophy. And BA is normally a non-technical process, because you understand business, you build requirement, you evolve those requirements to an implementation level. That's what we do. And we use these tool sets, whatever few available, to the best usage, so that I can represent the thought process clear, crisp, without any deviations or without any leakages, something like that, right? So these things. So overall, to certify as a BA, yes, if you are ready to put in 15-20 days of efforts, getting a BA certification, business analyst from PMI would be the best. Otherwise, BA Scrum certified, or they call it ITM, if I'm not mistaken. The initial agile practitioner, I think that's how they've labeled it. I'll get the exact certification details, might be in the next class, and we can discuss on this. So this is another certification which we can do. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
No problem. So there are a couple of certifications, but for me right now, just concentrate on BA. Let's try to understand, these different quality models which the organization follows. Let's try to get adopt to the, whatever templates we have. If we can get our hands, dirty on these things, I believe the certification will come easily to you. And if you want to put in efforts for certification, I'm there for you. Please don't worry. We can get it clear. And now I think Devji have really good, what you can say, collaboration with certain certification guys, which can help you up to a last minute, and which can basically walk last mile for you as well. So that's really good thing. Means let's try out those options also. And that's as in kind of leveraging the organizations, and that's you'll get the certificate, and you can show it to your employer. So you have to basically add value to the overall your application. That's you can do very easily. But you have to understand overall BA process, how we do what we do, and if we can really think it on this right now, that'll be great help. And that's what I want you to concentrate your efforts on. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, no problem.
That does.
Okay,
Thank
no
you.
problem. Sure. Anybody have any questions at this moment?
Sir, I have never ending questions, so better we continue with our course.
No, no problem. Keep asking. Please don't worry. Rudra, do you have any question?
Listening. Those are good questions.
Come again, please. Sorry.
Those are good questions.
Yes, yes, I know. We will learn from all these questions. That's why, I'm quite positive, or, quite pro question man kind of scenario, because these questions make us more adapt to the, technicalities or the things which we don't know. So questions are good. Questions means you're thinking. Questions means you're putting effort. That's how I see to the, to the questions.
Can I ask
See
you one
towards
more
the
question?
question. Yeah, please go ahead. I
Sorry,
like you.
it's not related to the course, but yeah, somehow it is. So once we finish our course and we are done with it by December end, if I believe, and
Right. Uh-huh.
when Guru School will start marketing our profiles. So does Guru Schools have any collaboration with any companies, or they will be just
Yeah, many. Means
oh
for first and foremost, the Infosys, TCS, Cognizant,
oh
and there are many American consulting agencies. Believe me, we are working for last 21 odd years.
okay,
So please
okay.
don't worry on that part. That's
Okay, so
as
it's easy to
that,
get the
that's
so it's easy to get the first project.
That's right. Most probably, I think you'll take 1 week or two after your workshop, and you'll get a certification from Guru School saying you have attended these things satisfactorily, excellently, those kind of scenario. So yes, please don't worry on. You will get a job. What I would like you to get adopt to the job. That's how I put it. So just assume you have the job with you. Now, how to adapt to the situation? That's what we are trying to learn, right? And
Because
let's walk that path.
because
And
I'm
that's why we will.
depending so much on this BA, I stopped looking around for the jobs. So I just want to quit my previous work and I just want to continue with the BA part. So I don't
I
want to
can
go
understand.
in the recruitment.
I can understand. So it'll not take much longer. First, we need to get adopt to the policies and procedures. That's what we are learning, right?
Yes.
I think the training will go for the next 2 weeks or so, and then we'll move to the actual workshop, which will span around a week or so, if longer. If somebody wants to take longer time or so, and then we will get this thing done, and you'll have many queries and questions during the workshop also, so that you'll get actual feel of how
Actual
you're working.
questions, I think we will get during the workshops because we will be
That's right.
practically working on
That's
them,
the
right?
right assumption. That's the right
Yeah.
And
assumption.
what's the best time we can open our LinkedIn profile? Because I don't want to use my current LinkedIn profile. So I need
And
to
I'll tell
have
you.
a new one.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
Rather, most probably, I think Devji or recruitment team will tell you, because
Yes.
they'll say, okay, I'm going to start marketing your profile from Monday onwards or Tuesday onwards, and that's how they start sending those flyers, emails, and all those things. So I
Okay.
think that's the right time to modify your LinkedIn or Facebook profile, or something like that. And I think they are the best person to tell you how the marketing and how the social site verification type of things goes with this company.
Okay.
But don't worry too much, because we have already association with these companies. So mostly it'll be it'll be addressed within a week or so. That's how I feel it normally. That's how I assume it normally.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead. Thanks. Sure. So we had look at couple of what I can say, different frameworks which normal companies use: ISO, CMMI, TMM, Six Sigma, and then we have these two from Six Sigma, that DMAC and DMDiv. So these kind of scenario, which one of these frameworks is prominent, which were used in organizations. So we need to understand that in depth. We will do that, but overall, right now we should have a overall collaborative comparisons with these, so that whenever we join or interview us, we should be able to tell a couple of sentences on each of these, right? So let's try to understand one by one. We had a look at it, so I'll go a bit faster. So we know, we discussed about ISO. There are various different certification within ISO for a particular type of product, particular type of project, particular type of services you support, you give, right, as an output of your organization. So your organization will choose one of those certificates ISO is most basically for the product you create, not the process. CMMI is basically a network, a framework which is applied to the process and steps. So ISO is more concerned about auditory facts. The CMI is more considered about the process flow, the process efficiency, and continuous improvement, and those kind of scenario. Okay, so that's a standard configure. What I can say, standard difference between these. CMMI we talked about. There are clearly 5 levels. One is initial. So whenever you start, normally start with one. You're trying to improve. You have that overall very keen interest to improve day by day. And how do you do it? You normally create a quality environment where there are some checks and balances for my product, for my processes, so that I can keep doing it effectively day by day in, day out. Number 2, I document some of such processes so that they can be repeatable, or I can show that document to somebody who is joining new, so that he can understand these processes followed here, understand the policies followed here, so that I can make my work environment disciplined, safe, and so on and so forth. Number 3 is defined. Now I choose a framework. I basically get aligned with certain framework as per my creation, as per my product, project, or services, and I defined it. So I defined it, I paste it on a wall where everybody can see, like I follow CMMI, I follow ISO, I follow security standard, and so on and so forth. And these are shared whenever a new employee or new inductee joins. I can share these things with him. So these are called defined processes. This is level 3. Then level 4, I manage these improvements. I control these improvements as well. I have certain numerical data coming out of these processes, so that they will tell me how effective, how ineffective, what do you mean by pass, what do you mean by fail, and those kind of auditory processes in place at number 4. So in number 4, I have something called internal quality department, IDA, internal quality processes, or QMS, where I have very defined processes or defined auditors to check internal process flow overall. In number 5, I have a IQA as well. I have something called PMOs. PMO is basically project management office, where these are very senior people who are keen in improving the processes, reducing the cost day in, day out. So there will be around 2 to 3 persons as per 100 numbers of employees. These are normally a very senior person. They know the product, they know the project services, what we do in our organizations, and they try to add value to it, how we can do better, how we can keep improving day by day, and they basically contribute to a great extent to the managed process, matrices collections, effective control, and the other flora and fauna of that thing, right? So this is CMMI. I'm talking about more processes. Then I go to test maturity model. Now there are certain groups or cultures where testing is at the prime importance. So whatever you test, uh, you can modify, you can align, you can make it better next time. That's how they feel. So they have built this process model according basis on quality control. That's a testing normally, right? So testing is normally referred as a quality control. That's a normal word which we should use day in, day out. So they build this model, so which is also called as a V model. So why V? Because one part of a V or one segment of my V is my development. Second segment of me is my testing. So I do parallel testing for each and every product, project, or services I have created, and I certified it step by step. So there are 5 different levels here also. These are normally start with the basic organizations. So we have ad hoc checks and balances. Then we have defined process in number 2. Number 3, we have integrated. So we have integrated leveled testing. We'll have a look at these things in today's class. What are the different type of testing and how we can basically understand testing types and relate to each other. So there are different testing types according to the step of development or the overall process of development where the product stands. Is it like when I'm trying to make a pen, right? I make my cap at a different module machine. I make my refill at a different module machine. I make my body of a pen at a different module machine. So I have to test these three things independently first, and then make them work together, right? So there are different stages of checks and balances, and of course there's a final check of final product testing as well. Okay, so these what I can say step in testings are labeled differently, and we'll have a look at those in today's class. Then there are management and measurements, of course, for testing as well. So I have my test run reports. I'll build up matrices out of it. So I'll collect some, how many clear the test, how many are actually, pass the test, how many failures, how can I reduce failure, how can I reduce the cost and everything. That's also part and parcel of level 4. Level 5 is the optimization. So another senior body who can basically help me continuously build in better efficiencies, continuously build in reducing the wastages, and so on and so forth. So there are these 5 levels in TMMI as well. These are pretty similar to CMMI, but yes, they have testing output is the main parameter to improve for the improvement, right? So there's a bit of difference. Now we talked about Six Sigma. It's a continuous, efforts to achieve stable and predictable processes. So Six Sigma talked about predictable processes. So whatever I've defined, whatever I've designed as in processes, it should be predictable. So if it's really in line with whatever I'm building, I'm good. If it's not, then I'm bad. So I have these checks and balances in Six Sigma for process executions, each and every process executions, and at a group level as well, and at an organizational level as well, right? So we've seen that video, and we understood what Six Sigma is. In Six Sigma, we are clear focus on achieving measurable and quantifiable financial returns. Six Sigma more talks about the overall financial matters. So cost improvements are the best agenda in Six Sigma. We have something called step-by-step process: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And that's how we follow that processes as per the our execution of building product or services, right? Any confusion at this any questions for me at this moment? Okay, there are two different paths in Six Sigma. One is plan, do, studies, act cycle, and I misspoke basically. There are these are clearly inspired by something called Deming's plan. There are quite a few number of PhDs on these things, and if you get a time on a Google, you can try to read the abstracts of a couple of guys on plan, do, study, act cycle. This is really good cycle which they started analyzing, and they have formulated these two different process improvement categories, one for existing and one for the new one. So one for the existing organization, one can be for the startup organization, and they have clearly what I can say different approaches here, because existing business has an existing culture, so we adopt to the new one, and we have to justify how, why, and how kind of scenario. In startup, you don't have an existing framework or existing culture, so whatever you adopt is new, and you need to test and try it. So there's some extra effort needed in startups. In existing procedures, you have extra obstacles, and that's a part and parcel of overall adoption things, right? So Six Sigma is not followed that much nowadays, but still, just to know, we have something called plan, do, study, act cycle here, right? So we'll revise this thing whenever we are getting ready for the interview and all. And then again, this is what TQM, total quality management. TQM is a bit older older framework, but these are normally used in auto manufacturing, because if the best auto manufacturers are Germans and Japanese, right? They follow this TQM because these are more towards assembly line, because car manufacturer don't create anything as such. They create car, they assemble car, right? So in assembly, TQM is more forthcoming, and there are certain standard procedure followed to have optimum quality, and how to improve my cost cutting, how to build in efficiency. Okay, US Navy have adopted TQM in 1980s for all their equipment manufacture. So if you go to some helicopter manufacturing plant for US military as well, so you normally file TQM there. They don't they have the ISO as well. Okay, many of the organizations normally use one or two combination as well. Like if you go to US military, they have CMMI, they have ISO, and they have TQM. So if you go to a manufacturing plant of an what this called ordnance factory, there you find TQM and ISO are prominent. If you go to some software solutions like that drone calibration unit or drone observation unit, you normally go with CMMI. Okay, so these are the things which we need to understand, and these are the normal implementation. So whenever we are getting ready for the interview, that time we will discuss which is more prominent for a given company, so that we can study that only. Normally they don't ask the others because they want to understand whatever in terms of quality framework. And the major important part is whatever they have adapted to, what all on that forefront, what about something like TQM, ISO, CMMI. These are the I think ISO and CMMI are the most prominent one. So that's why we have discussed those things in detail, right? So let's move on quickly. We talked about cost of quality. We understood what you mean by cost of quality. We discussed at the length what we are trying to do. Whatever efforts you put for improving quality or implementing quality considers under cost of quality. So we have all these different efforts put in. So we'll calculate those man material machines, matrices or man machine material detailed numbers, so that we'll know cost of quality. This is a bit complex calculations. As in BA, the cost of quality is just a number. You should know how to calculate, but whenever you join an organizations, they have certain facts and figures more important to the top management. So the cost of quality is what I can say, aligned towards those figures, facts and figures. So whenever you join an organization, I think that's the best time to understand cost of quality means, what cost of quality means for that particular organizations, and then we learn in depth there, right? Theoretical level, we have cost of quality, cost of poor quality, cost of good quality. We understood how these different different parameters affect overall building cost of qualities, right? And we understood how we build, how we calculate cost of poor quality, how we calculate cost of good quality, right? Any confusion here? Anybody want to ask any questions?
Yeah. Actually, I don't remember when we did the good quality and poor quality one.
Right. You say you remember a video?
No, I don't. I don't remember those two. The
Yeah,
cost
even,
of good and
yeah,
bad quality.
same here.
Cost
I think
of
we
quality.
stopped. Yeah, we stopped right
Yeah,
here.
we stopped there.
Okay. So what was the video we were saying? Okay, no, TKM we had cost of quality. 8 minutes we had a certain video, I believe, right? Okay, cost of good quality. Okay, let me check out. I had a video, I believe. Let me cost of quality. Okay, I don't have a video on cost of quality. We had watched a video. That's what you're trying to no, that's for the TQM.
No, I don't know if there is a video. I was just saying, we stopped here last time.
Here.
That was it.
Okay, we stopped. Okay. Sorry, I
Yeah.
was confused. I was trying to search, do you have a video on cost of quality? No. Okay, cost of quality is again organizational matter, as I told you, right? So if I join Infosys, Infosys normally track down 36 matrices day in, day out. Now, how does matrices works? Let me tell you. You build something called status report at end of each day. So what this status report is basically what have you worked on, number of hours, number of minutes, and you normally key in and just click on submit on your normal intranet portal. That's what they're doing this thing from last 15 odd years, right? These status reports get converted to numerical format whenever the reporting managers or your reporting authority sees this. So what he'll see, Ravindra have worked 2 hours on requirement gathering. Ravindra worked 1 hour on building HLD. Ravindra worked 2 hours on building use case diagram for these many functionalities, and they have been released at this folder in my archival system. Okay, that's fine. Now when I get these numbers, what the system will do, they'll divide these numbers in the actual number of hours spent for a given artifact, for a given document, right? And these gets calculated at an organizational level. So I exactly know how much Ravindra has spent on documentation, how much Ravindra has spent on building use case diagrams, and how these efforts have reflected in the successful project, right? Or how these efforts have been reflected in basically gathering requirements or building qualitative requirements, and how they are basically resulted in overall execution of a project process or services, right? So these way I call this matrice, project health matrices. I collect these matrices on day in day out, and I normally create a monthly cost of quality reports based on these numbers, so that I exactly know how many hours as a team, spend on building SRS, spend on building use case diagram, because I can add these numbers, right, as and when they get collected. So this way I keep track of my cost of quality, I keep track of my resultant output, and the quality, the quality of output, because I have clear checklist. I have a yes, Pallavi ma'am. The revision class is tomorrow. Tomorrow 9 o'clock. But you can still hear. Try to understand, what we are talking about, so that you can relate. It's a bit confusing. I can understand. But let's try to learn with everybody else and try to understand what everybody thinks as an BA. So we are in basically quality, control and quality. Assurance type of capsule in our training as far as BA learning goes, right? So we are trying to understand how the overall cost of quality does reflect in the whole BA scenario, right? So please be there. No, don't worry, it's a bit confusing, I can clearly understand. Okay, and for everybody, there's a new batch joining from 15th, I believe, 15 December, and you can all be there at no extra cost. Okay, so we'll be repeating, we'll be trying to relearn again, try to get ourselves more acquainted with the BA processes. Okay, so Palli ma'am, you can hang on there and you can ask question if you feel. Please don't
Okay,
feel
sure.
yeah, sorry. Okay, so so cost of quality, so all this cost of quality is basically got tracked on an organizational level, and each organization have their culture or process maturity to drive these numbers or to calculate these numbers. So if I tell you about Infosys, then you'll have a kind of a prejudice if you go to a product company where they don't have status report, so they collect number on the robotic automation base, right? Because the workings are a bit different. So there's more to unlearn than to learn, and that really hampers overall BA, because we normally try to create new visions. So whenever you're working with a product company, you'll be more aligned towards the product robotic automation than thinking about status report. In IT company, the resources or the developers are the critical person who creates 40% of the efforts and create 100% of product. How? Because overall, if you look at the SDLC, the development efforts are around about 40%. There are testing efforts are around 25 to 30%. There are other efforts are those and these are industry standards. What I'm talking about, there could be deviation. There could be 45% in development, 10% in as in BA, and so on and so forth. So these SDLC get applied a bit differently in each and every organizations, and there are processes to understand and align it for the least wastages, right? And that's how they evolved. So me as an external person, I couldn't really comment on the each and every of such implemented processes of quality, cost of qualities. Cost of quality, yes, as in philosophy, as a standard term, is really crucial, but translating it to actual production level, actual product level, or actual support level is bit different implementation. And I don't want you to prejudice for cost of quality in general. So I want to keep your mind open, just try to understand what cost of quality means, and that'll be more than enough, believe me. As in BA, we don't contribute much to cost of quality, but we normally try to understand cost of quality. Am I spending too many efforts? That's what kind of checks and balances which as a person I should have, and that's fine, that's normally requirement. And the videos which I have searched are more attached towards each of these company. and if you keep watching those things, they'll basically disturb you more than learning. So I have to keep you, blank, or rather, I'll not say blank, sorry, that's not the right word. I want to keep you fresh. I want to keep you open and understanding the cost of quality wherever you join. Okay, so that's why, I have not paid any video. Does that answer your question, or does that solve your confusion?
Yes.
Okay, great. No problem. So, I am there with you throughout, overall journey. So please don't feel, lost out. There are certain things which I do, which I think are the best for you. Yes, I can be wrong, no problem. And I'm, trying to even learn also. So it's like, adapted to the scenario, and let's do it. Learning is good, researching is really good, but overall, certain times, if you stay back and keep your mind clear, that helps a lot. And COQ is a philosophy, like, matrix collection is also a philosophy. PMO is also a philosophy, and we will discuss sometimes whenever we have time. Believe me, these are really great philosophies. And many people have done doctorates in these things, because this is evolving matter, right? You have process framework one side, and you have people or resources working on the other, and you try to find a median in between them, right? And that's how the cost of quality works. So please try to keep an open mind, just understand the philosophy, and we'll discuss sometimes also. Before interview might be a right time to discuss cost of quality as in philosophy, or the process frameworks as an independent process framework, or the new process framework definition is also another discussion points. Okay, so we'll discuss this, don't worry. Do you have any other questions for me at this moment? Okay, now let's try to wrap this up. Try to understand what are the QC measures we follow day in day out, right? So we talked about overall groups, right? So we build something called quality management system, which have a strict framework guidelines of from these frameworks, and we'll try to adapt to them day in day out. Okay, so how this superset works? Quality system is my biggest subset. Then quality assurance, that's where I try proactively applying methodologies or framework to have least possible errors, least possible wastages, and the most efficient way of working. In quality control, I build some checks and balances, where I do check and balance on day in day out on my products, on my output, so that I can build better QA, better quality system. That's how the over evolution and the superset subset kind of scenario works, right? And at the end of the day, what I'm trying to target to achieve the base satisfaction of my customer. So I shouldn't miss that one. Base satisfaction of my customer and my company as well, my organizations, as in satisfaction of creating a new product, building a new product, creating a better solution, and the others points aligning to that, right? So that's how QA/QMS works overall. Now, how do I do quality control? Quality control is a kind of finite implemented way of checking things, building quality. Okay, so quality control is a process by which entities review quality of all factors involved in production. It can be defined as a part of quality management focus on fulfilling quality requirement. So these are more practical approaches to building quality, and the most ground level part of understanding quality or building quality day in day out. And that's how the overall quality processes have started, from checking things, right? How do I build quality? If I want to make a good tea, I'll first taste it, right? Looking at tea doesn't make sense. Yes, looking at tea also falls into quality checks and procedures, but I drink tea, right? So my taste buds should be satisfied. That's the end goal. Looking, yes, looking is also good, and some might feel looking is more prominent. The aroma getting out of tea is also more prominent. So there could be different aspects or different approaches to quality control, different approaches to address the same problem. Okay, so there could be some different testing methodologies, testing approaches, depending on your personality, depending on your perceptions. We're going to understand that how these things unite, how these things make us more qualitative, more efficient for, day by day, right? So how do we improve day by day? That's the overall what you can say basic crux we need to understand. Are you with me? Am I talking too fast?
Sorry, sir, I missed it.
Okay, what part have you missed?
Actually, it's my bad. Actually, I got a call, so it's not
Okay,
me.
no problem. So we are trying to now learn to the final implementation part of QMS, what is called quality control. It's a part of quality management, focus on fulfilling quality requirements. So these things are really traceable, measured in numbers, and understand on ground. That's the most important part of it. So physically, there are certain things which you can touch. So these are certain things which you can touch in the overall QMS philosophy. So I can test a tea, right? Testing a tea, that will satisfy me. Looking at a tea also will satisfy me. Some might say the aroma coming from the teapot is the most important part. When I, smell the tea, that's what I really feel good and I feel energized. So there are certain different approaches of all, quality control, depending on the requirements, depending on the understanding, and depending on the policies and processes they have adopted or they feel important to them, right? So that's why there are different types and approaches of quality control. We'll have a look at them and we'll try to make it. Sorry, any question for me? Okay, I'll move on, no problem. Where am I? Okay, let's try to. Okay, so yes, quality control. Okay, so we have to understand the perception, we have to understand the angle of QC also, and everybody have their own way of approaching the quality control. Okay, it depends on competence, it depends on knowledge, it depends on skill, experience, and qualification as well. Okay, there are certain soft element as in personal integrity, confidence, and organizational culture, motivation, and blah 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 things, and there are certain hard elements, disciplined elements. So you have something like Excel sheet, test run reports, test run outputs, and so on and so forth, right? So inspection is the major component of quality control. Inspection is basically the checks, right? We look at it, we feel it, we try to run it, and we'll try to understand its alignment towards the requirements. We try to understand it conformance to the requirement so that we can make it more aligned or more satisfaction prone whenever it's possible, right? So this way we will try to build more efficient product, reduce the costing, and so on and so forth, right? So we are trying to implement quality control at a ground level, and there are certain types and approaches what we're going to learn today, right? So let's go ahead one by one. So there's something called, these are different types of testing. Types of testing is basically how do you checks, how do you build these checks, and how do you execute it, and what the types stand for. This stands for different approaches taken to build quality control for a given processes. Most of these testing categories are from software products or for software product. Okay, but these are similar for other products as well. So there are certain what I can say, double naming, there are certain overlapping also happens. So please don't stand for a definition. If somebody asks you what you mean by unit testing, so as name suggests, one person testing one thing, as simple as that. Just keep it there. If you try to explain a programmer checking his, a singular program and singular entity, life will be difficult. Testing is just an approach to do checks, right? So we need to understand from that background rather than going into depth, because sometimes the definition or the adaptation is a bit confusing. So let's not try to go into definition. I have included definition just to make sure we understand the approach, and then as there are certain contradiction and confusions even in the actual practical world, we'll try to stay away from definition. Okay, because if you answer a question in interview and if the other guy feels other way, you might be in a soup, or you might be in a kind of what you can say least favorite selective candidates, and so on and so forth. So let's not try to define testing. Let's try to understand the process. Let's try to relate to a practical scenario, and let's leave it there, right? So there's nothing major to learn, but more to understand. Let's try to learn unit testing. Unit testing ensures each part of the code developed in a component delivered and for the desired output, right? So we are trying about testing a pen cap. We are trying about testing one single program. right? Could you understand the unit test of unit testing?
Yes.
I'll ask again. Could you understand, could you relate the unit test in unit testing?
Yes.
Great. Anybody have any confusion? Please feel free to ask.
Is it okay if we say that it's unit verification as well?
Yes, that's right. Unit verification. Okay, testing is verification. Very rightly said. Sorry, I missed that word. Okay, perfect. So I believe we understood this. Unit testing, unit verification, units checking, right? And this is what do. So this is basically one unit you're checking. So if it's a cap, one type of unit you're checking. So if you're checking caps in a pen factory, you're going to check caps, and you'll make sure that whatever that caps have been produced by the automated robotic system are perfect and according to the quality checks. What are the quality checks? These are test cases what we build. What are test cases? These are reflection of requirement. Okay. We were going to learn that thing in depth in traceability again. I have some special few side for traceability. We talked about requirement traceability at length, and we'll stress more because that's one of the most important part of control. What we control the conformance to the requirement, right? So the test case is basically a reflection of a requirement. That's why we mention those requirement in HLD in use case, and I couldn't stress more because each of such requirement must result to the output or must show or must satisfy the output, and in the end we satisfy the customer. That's how the overall thing looks like. Okay, so let's try to understand. So as far as typical programmer goes, each program is my unit. As far as my product factory goes, each unit product, disassembled product is my unit. As far as service goes, each new service enhancement is my unit product. Okay, now let's move ahead. Now let's try to understand functional testing. We talked about functional, right? We talked about functionality. Now what are the functionality? Each and every requirement resulting in each and every functionality. So there's a clear traceability of evolution here, right? So we start with BRD, we build SRS, and then we build FRS. Business requirement document has been converted or has been evolved to system requirement specification, which is authored and created by me as an BA, which is converted to the functional requirements specification, which is the document owned by the project development team, product development team, or service development team, which basically develops this actual solution, actual product, or actual project, actual solution, right? So these specifications have a one-to-one traceability or evolution path for each and every this requirement or each and every such functionality. So a requirement modified or evolved into a solution functionality. That's the overall traceability we are talking about. These states validate the software system against the functional requirement or functional specification. Purpose of functional test is to test each function of a software application by providing appropriate input, verifying the output against the functional requirement. So when I want to say my pen should write in blue color, right? That's a functional requirement. So my pen should write in blue color as smoothly as possible. So there should be some gradient of smoothness. There is some gradient of darkness. There is some gradient of width of the writing, and so on and so forth. So there could be n number of such requirement put in the document, which I need to verify whenever I write with that pen, right? So these are the functional requirements. This is how we test. Whenever I say I need to enhance the attendance management system, so how I'm enhancing? I'm enhancing it with the iris scanner. So the iris scanner should check each and every employee whenever he puts his eye for testing or for in front of that iris scanner, should pop out or say his name. Okay, Ravindra Pandey, attendance. How it says, man, I forgot the exact statement how iris scanners work. So they say, Ravindra Pandey, welcome, have a good day. This is how it speaks out to you. That's how the iris scanners are basically made in a normal scenario. You can change this audio, you can change this sentence and everything, and that's what the programmers do. But normally that's what the standard iris scanner does. Ravindra Pandey, attendance noted, have a great day. This is how it says whenever you enters. At the end of the day, whenever you going out, it says Ravindra Pandey, uh, attendance completed, have a good evening, something like that. So this is how these say. The iris scanner replies to you after it's noted your incoming or outgoing, right? And these things basically get reflected into the database from the solution itself. So the attendance system will notify Ravindra Pandey came at 9 o'clock, leave at 6:30 or whatever it may be, as per the actual scenario, in minutes and nanoseconds as well, right? So this is how overall I implement a functionality, and which can be traced to the requirement, which can be traced to the first meeting or the evolutionary meeting which we had for clarifying the requirement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
This is the most important testing we do as an BA, functional testing. So when I say I'm implementing an enhancement in attendance management system, I need to make sure the attendance management system had been actually enhanced. And how it's enhanced? By implementing iris scanner. So how I make sure that iris scanner implementing, helping them, I'll go there, I check myself, or I visit the factory, or I ask the feedback from the client. And the feedback client says, functional test report have been successful. That's a normal way of mentioning you passed your satisfaction levels. Okay, that's a normal reply what we get. But yes, we will learn. There are clients who put it differently. There are what I can say, users who put it differently. So these are the generic words or generic interpretation of functional test pass. These are the most important tests, and as an BA, I have my maximum contribution in this testing because I have created the functionality, I have labeled the functionality, I have make sure they are evolved up to a level can be implemented to SRS. So functional testing is the most important testing as far as BA goes, right? But I am working in an advisory capacity. So I am not basically controlling the flow. I am trying to guiding the flow towards the maximum efficiency. That's what my contribution is. Does that make sense? Could you understand what I'm trying to say here?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, great, no problem. Let's go ahead. Then comes the component testing. As the name suggests, these are basically component testing or a module testing. What I'm trying to test here, I'm trying to test a module. If it's a big complex system, if I'm manufacturing a helicopter for that matters, there could be some modules, a seat module or a seat ejection module, if you ever heard of, or the fan rotor module, where the fan, on helicopter we have a fan rotating, right? So that rotator module might have 30 different elements or 50 different elements. Each of these unit elements is testing in unit testing. Then I have something called module testing. I'll test this module all together if it fits to the requirement criteria. What are the requirement criteria? The fan blade should rotate at so and such speed. The seat should be ejected at such and such angle, such and such thrust, and blah blah blah, those things, right? So I need to make sure whatever the requirement has been evolved or elicited, I'll make sure my modules, whichever I'm assembling from a unit level, have basically make sure clear those criteria, and then they'll be called test passed, right? So checks individual subprograms, subroutines, or procedures in a program, and instead of testing the whole software, I do it step by step. So I do unit, I do module testing, and then I do integration testing or the functional testing, and so on and so forth. So in a product scenario, module testing or a component testing is a testing between for new part of the other part of the complex many part assembly, like car. So in a car we have tire and tube. So whenever I have a tire and tube, and if it's a tubeless tire, I'll just test the overall rim and the segments, right? So that's what we call components or module testing. Okay. Let's watch this unit testing tutorial, which will basically make you understand how the overall testing work. Actually I have okay, yes, these are very small videos, and let's try to watch in a succession, right? So I'll stop share, I'll start the video. Okay, and I'll share these things. So how do I share? Okay, I'll share my screen. Where is that? Okay, there's a chat, I believe. Let me take that chat as well. Verification is a process, verifies to verify certain things. Yes, these are a linguistic challenge, so please don't worry. But yes, you're right.
Let's consider a scenario to understand the testing life cycle. You work for an IT outsourcing company as part of the testing team, and your company is hired by a bank to develop an online banking application. To understand the testing life cycle, let's first quickly go through the development life cycle. During requirement analysis phase, after a series of meetings, the client decides he wants the following 5 functionalities into a system. Login on valid credentials. View current bank account balance. Deposit money. Withdraw money. Transfer money to a third-party account. Next, in the functional specification stage, architecture, database, and operating environment design are finalized. Next, in high-level design stage, the application is broken down in module and programs. In detailed design stage, the pseudocode for functions for each module is documented. Next, actual coding begins. This is the software development cycle of the V model. During all these phases, the tester is not sitting idle for the coding to complete, but is doing corresponding testing activities. Let's look at them one by one. Unit testing. It is also called component testing. It is performed on a standalone module to check whether it is developed correctly. For the login module, which may look like this after development, typical unit test cases would be: check response for valid login and password. Check response for invalid login and password. Check response when login is empty and login button is pressed. Unit test is done by developers, but in practical world, developers are either reluctant to test their own code or do not have time to unit test. Many times, much of the unit testing is done by testers.
Okay, so we now understand how the overall labeling differs. Whenever we try to understand a testing or a quality control methodology, right? So here the most important part is basically trying to understand what we do in quality control, how the overall testing or checks and balances make ourselves more adapted, more prone towards adapting better quality, or making sure whatever we are doing to adopt the best possible quality or best possible measures within our quality control executions, right? So that's what the most important part here, right? And he also called unit testing component testing, or for that matters, this is how the overall words overlap. So please don't fall in the trap of defining testing. Testing is just check to verify certain things. Verification is the process which we are basically putting our efforts to make sure it conforms with the requirement whatever we have gathered as in BA, right? So that's the testing overall. Now this is called system testing and integration testing. Now what it does, you test the system on a whole. So in that scenario, we test the complete login and the bank deposit or bank withdrawal. So it's a complete function I'm testing on a given system or on a developed solution, product, project, or services, right? So integration testing performed to expect defects in the interface in the interaction between integrated component or system. So here I'm talking if the tire fit to the given car, what I'm making, or the rotor blade, how it fits to the overall helicopter. Does it work with the helicopter? Does the seat ejection system work within the helicopter, whatever it's supposed to do? And those are the functionality which I normally checks for whenever I am doing this system integration testing, right? And then there's a called smoke testing. Smoke testing is basically a software testing technique which is built to verify that critical functionality. There are certain critical requirements which are must, which has to be checked more rigorously, with more intention, with more stress, and that's what the smoke testing is all about. So you are basically depicting some critical functionality to be tested a couple of times, and that was is normally referred as smoke testing. And then something called sanity testing. Now, sanity testing is basically performed after receiving the software build. These are basically final testing. These are tests before handing over to the client. So these are normally tested by business analyst as well. So what we do, the goal is to determine the proposed functionality works roughly as expected. Why roughly? Because I don't have the exact data as what the clients needs, right? So whenever somebody with light blue eye at a State Farm office scans his eye, then I'll know how it work on a practical on ground zero. I can test it in my office whenever I can roughly make sure my eye is getting scanned and my name is populated in the LCD below, or the system is speaking out my name. That's how I check it. But it's roughly as expected. So this is what the sanity is all about. The build is rejected to save if the sanity test fail. If you can't produce the result with the approximation, it's going to make it's going to fail whenever you basically implement on a ground. So if sanity test fail, the build is rejected to save the time and cost involved in a major rigorous testing, or major what I can say bad phase for the organizations with the client. So this is a kind of final testing which we do, right? And then there is regression testing. Regression testing is almost at the final stage before user acceptance testing. Okay, so regression testing are done by specified quality control team, specified quality control what you can say specially trained domain experts, to make sure whatever we do, whatever we have developed is in line with the domain, in line with the whatever requirement of functionality for a given work area, right? So if it's a banking application, it'll be secure enough to take it to a level of to be deployed in a bank. If it's attendance management, then there is a less security concerns, but still there are certain security concerns. Like if I pull out a wire and connect that wire in my own computer, can I bypass it? Okay, now that's what we call regression testing. So I need to make sure the system shouldn't be hacked easily, system shouldn't be damaged easily, or if somebody plays around with the input system, it should be strong enough to stop the such hindrance and maintain itself in a composite way. That's how overall regression testing is all about, right? So regression testing is a kind of software testing which confirms the recent program or code changes have not adversely affected. So they are not contradicting with the basic domain functionality required earlier, right? So whatever additions you do, whatever updations you do, they are in line with the basic requirement of the basic domain functionality, and the alignment is checked thoroughly. So we check it couple of times. That's how the overall regression testing, or sometimes it's also called as maintenance testing. So you are trying to check whenever you release an update, it still function at its required, because there could be some damages possibility, right? So this is what I check in regression testing. Then I have okay, where's the user? Okay, there's a final called user acceptance testing. What is user acceptance testing? This is normally performed by users at a client. What they do, they normally check for the functionality which they have mentioned in the BRD, if they are working fine or not, or working as per their satisfaction. So user acceptance testing is like, I implement this iris scanner at State Farm, and I have given logins, or I have checked the credential for first 10 or 15 resources or employees to make sure these testings are working, the system is working for them. And then I'll try to add all the employee base. If the testing releases satisfied results for these 15 odd employees, then I'll release the system to the masses. So it will be released to the go live. That's how we label it in a IT scenario, right? And this is what the overall kind of very final phase in the testing, so that the product, project or services could be released to the client. Okay. Any questions for me at this moment? I can understand this is a bit confusing, but only just try to remember there are different types and there are different stages of development which these testings are referred to. That's as simple as that. Okay, let's try to watch another one or two video so that we'll understand in depth how industry thinks about this testing and what are the different testings are basically labeled and why they are labeled.
Consider a scenario.
Wait, I need to share this thing. So now let's try to understand smoke
When
and sanity
after
testing.
defects of integration testing, the software is made available to the testing team for the system testing. You look at the initial screen, system looks fine, and delay system test execution for the next day since you have other critical testing tasks to attend to. Next day, say you plan to execute the scenario. Login, view balance, transfer 500, log out. The deadline is 4 hours. You begin executing the scenario. You enter a valid login ID, password. Click the login button. And boom. You are taken to a blank screen with absolutely no links, no buttons, and nowhere for you to proceed. This is not a figment of any imagination, but a very practical condition which could arise due to developer negligence, time pressures, test environment configuration and instability, etc. To fix this issue, developer requires at least 5 hours, and deadline would be missed. In fact, none of your team members will be able to execute their respective scenario, since view balance is start point to perform any other operation. And the entire project will be delayed. Had you checked this yesterday itself, the system would have been fixed by now and you would have been good for testing. To avoid such situation, sanity, also known as smoke testing, is done to check critical functionalities of the system before it is accepted for major testing. Sanity testing is quick and is non-exhaustive. Goal is not to find defects but to check system health.
So this is about sanity testing. Let's try to understand. Unit testing we have, TQM we have, acceptance testing.
System testing is concerned with behavior of the system as a whole. Unlike integration testing, which focuses on data transfer amongst modules, system testing checks complete end-to-end scenarios, as the way a customer would use the system.
Sir, we are not able to see the video. It's just the audio.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I have to share. Pardon me for that. I'll just share the screen. Sorry. Oh man.
System testing is
Could you see
concerned
now?
with behavior of the system as a whole.
Yes.
Unlike integration
Yes.
testing,
Thank you.
which focuses on data transfer amongst modules, system testing checks complete end-to-end scenarios, as the way a customer would use the system. A good example of test case in this phase would be: log into the banking application, check current balance, transfer some money, log out. Apart from functional, non-functional requirements like performance, reliability, etc. are also checked during system testing. Acceptance testing. Acceptance test is usually done at client location, by the client, once all the defects found in system testing phase are fixed. Focus of acceptance test is not to find defects but to check whether the software system meets their requirements. Since this is the first time the client sees their requirements, which is plain text, into an actual working system. Acceptance testing can be done in two ways. Alpha testing a small set of employees of the client, in our case employees of the bank.
Yeah, again, there are certain labels like alpha testing, beta testing, gamma testing, and these are labels of user acceptance testing. So you normally release it for 5, then 15, and then 30, and so on and so forth. But normally you have just one user acceptance testing, like you test 20 odd employees and then release it to the masses. That's how the software company do. But for a complex system, you can release it gradually as well. So alpha, beta, gamma are normally labeled as in the number of users, or a set of employees to be addressed to. So there could be small, medium, and the last set, and so on and so forth. So there could be many other calculation labels as well. So just try to understand how this label relates to the testing. Okay, so overall we are going to understand testing and different addresses topics to, or different ways to make sure the things are in line with the requirements. That's what the overall philosophy it matters at the end of the day. Okay,
We'll use the system as the end user would. Beta testing a small set of customers, in our case bank account holders, will use the software and recommend changes.
Matt, what the hell is that? Okay, now let me integration, smoke and sanitation, regression testing, non-functional testing.
Apart from functional testing, non-functional requirements like performance, usability, load factor are also important. How many times have you seen such long load time messages while accessing an application? I am sure many. To address this issue, performance testing is carried out to check and fine-tune system response times. The goal of performance testing is to reduce response time to an acceptable level. Or you may have seen messages like, hence load testing is carried out to check systems performance at different loads, that is number of users accessing the system. Depending on the results and expected usage, more system resources may be added. That's all. 2 types of testing. In general, there are 3 testing types: functional, non-functional, maintenance. Under these types you have multiple testing levels, usually called as testing types. You may find some difference in this classification in different resource, but the general theme remains the same. This is not the complete list, as there are more than 150 types of testing. No need to bother or worry. You will pick them up as you age in the testing industry. Also, note that not all testing types are applicable to all projects, but depends on nature and scope of the project. More on this in a late.
Okay, so let's try to what I can say. Where is that? Oh man, come on.
So there are so many testing in one day. It's so confusing.
No. You don't have to learn all those things. As an BA, as I told you, we are in an advisory capacity. So we just want to make sure. That's what I'm coming to right now. So what we do, we make sure the requirement and functionality have been implemented as per documents, right? As per the SRS, as per the FRS, and that's why as I told you, I'm an approver in the FRS. So whatever functionality has been evolved, I have to make sure they are in line with the SRS. Unless and until they are in line, I will not pass FRS. And unless and until I pass the FRS, it will not go to the production. So developer will not put a finger on a keyboard until I give a go ahead to the FRS. That's how it happens in the real life, right? So these are certain things. They have their checks and balances in place, and the industry best practices are towards making sure whatever captured as a requirement has to be implemented, nothing more. The value add has to be thought and implemented at the last stage. But first we want to make sure whatever the came to us as a requirement, we'll implement those number of things, and implement those things clearly, crisply, effectively. That's the main motto, right? So we have to understand functional requirement. We need to approve it as an BA. That's the important part. Now these test inputs and test data based on this requirement. So when I say ID scanner need to scan eye, yes, if I put a let's say glass in front of that ID scanner, it should understand like it's not an eye, so it will give a failure, right? So these type of test checks verifications should be part of overall quality control mechanism, and that's normally are, right? And we compute the expected outcomes with a selected test input value. So once there is something like light blue eye, how that is reflected, that's what I'll find in a test. If there is a Sony iris scanner needed, I'll find that in a test and I'll suggest it accordingly. Now execute test run report is basically running this test cases whatever we created against requirement and making sure the system or the created product, project or services are in line with the requirement. That's the basic thing we do in the testing or a quality control, right? Their label could be misleading sometimes, and there are personalities who normally go across the labeling. So let's not try to define testing. That's what my personal, request to you. Try to understand the philosophy of which part I'm referring to. So a module testing can be referred as an integration testing and can be referred as a unit testing as well. So sometimes the control has to be, made as per the domain or made as per the team's way of labeling things, right? So there are some differences, and then on top of everything we have something called automated testing. So nowadays we have some automated system do this test, they do these test run reports. So how that look, there's a robotic or there's a what you can software which will try to log in with different username password and create a test report for me. This is happens, and this is what actually is basically trying, and that's why QC test resources are reducing numbers day by day, because everything is basically getting automated, and then with the automation we can do it quickly. And the automated bots or automated test bots, what you normally call, they are more efficient. They are really, once you develop, they are easy to run in the night as well. So those kind of scenario makes it more towards doing these checks and balances from automated system, and you can give the requirement to them and they'll do the test case report, test case run report, and so on and so forth as per the need of yours. And that's how the practicability is working right now in many scenarios. Unless it's a specifically critical product or a product which is normally non-existence or non-common products, we use manual testing. Okay, does that make sense? So don't confuse with the nomenclature. Don't get confused with the, which testing is called what. Just try to understand. We have to check things. We have to verify things. And that's what all we do. At the end of the day, the requirements matters. The requirements converted into functionality, that's what I'm checking, and that's what it all matters. Right? Any confusions here?
Makes sense.
Okay. Now there are something called functional and non-functional. These are normally asked in interview questions, so we need to understand, not in depth but superficially. So we are trying to understand functional testing. In functional testing, I test the requirement listed in the SRS, right? I test the functionality mentioned in the FRS. In non-functional testing, I check the performance. What is performance? One page should take less than 3 nanoseconds to reply, like an acknowledgement, login successful. After clicking login, that login successful or invalid credential should come to me within so many seconds. This is a performance, right? This is a normal scenario, right? I couldn't waste to get an acknowledgement for minutes altogether. Otherwise, I'll start using other app. That's how the overall performance does matter. If I'm trying to build a sports car, it should at least reach a speed of 120 miles an hour. That's a normal generic requirement. This is a performance requirement, but this can be a functional as well as non-functional requirement. If I mention as an BA, if I mention this requirement as a problem statement and a solution given in my functionality list, it will be functional requirement, but it is normally termed as a performance requirement, hence non-functional. So there could be some overlap. So don't take it as a clear-cut segregation. There could be some overlaps. There could be some even interchanging labels. So compatibility testing can be a typical functionality testing. Penetration testing is basically security testing. can be required or can be a functional testing in banking application or an ATM application. Okay, so these are just for our reference. There is something called functional and non-functional. We categorize this just to make sure the domain which we are verifying or the application which we are implementing is in line with the requirement or even environment which it needs to be fit in, right? Does that make sense? Do anybody have any questions for me at this moment? You're understanding, like what do you mean by checks? What do you mean by quality control?
Yeah.
Okay, great, no problem. Let's go ahead. Then we call non-functional testing. So we've checked, right? Non-functional testing checks the performance, reliability, scalability, and all the non-functional aspect of the software system or any solution for that matter, right? Non-functional testing are normally performed after functional testing. So this comes before the UAT again. So the sequence doesn't matter. It depends on organizational culture, how you plan the testing. Even non-functional testings are normally done by Autobots or auto test bots. Okay, so performance parameter like speed, scalability are the inputs to non-functional testing, and that's how they test, and that's how they get labeled in the test report. So the page sequence executed within 10 nanoseconds, or the iris scanner normally takes 7 seconds. These are performance requirements are normally mentioned in the test run report, right? Let's try to move ahead. So now, yes, this is the most important part as a BA. We talked about this quite a few times. Let's try to revisit this thing. So traceability matrix is a document or a table that correlates two documents that required a many-to-many relationship to check completeness of the relationship. So what I'm talking about evaluating a typical one requirement to 3 or 4 solutions, or one solution is addressing 3 or 4 different requirements, right? This happens. An ID scanner is supporting overall attendance management system, from attendance time as well as identifying the persons. So I am killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I am solving 2 functionality with 1 implementation. There could be many instruments to solve to solve one functionality as well, right? So it could happen. Let's try to understand how the traceability works and how quality control is evolved or make life better with this traceability matrix. Okay, it used to be track requirements and to check current project requirements are made. So RTM is make sure like the requirements are traced from the requirement gathering day to the product release date, and we make check in the Excel sheet saying okay, this is check. So that's also another kind of check or quality control mechanism in place to check each and every requirement have been addressed in the product. And there are certain requirements which are moved to phase 2. So these requirements are basically developed later, and these are normally mentioned as a known defects. Mark my word, known defects. The requirements which are going to get developed later are normally mentioned as a known defects in my requirement traceability matrix. It's a simple table, and this table is normally part of every document, including BRD sometimes, including SRS, including FRS as well. Okay, so this is what we talked about, how I have phased the development, how the iterations are planned, and how I keep the requirements executing sequentially in thinking or in conversation with my client, right? So I talk to the client, I get this approved from the client. So whatever I plan as a development, I get it planned, the development schedule from my client. And this is how the Scrum meeting will reflect. The Scrum meeting as an instrument, I'll make sure whatever I have got as a schedule has been approved by the client and conveyed to him on almost daily, if not weekly basis. Right? The main purpose of the requirement traceability matrix is called RTM. Normally, it's referred as an RTM, is to validate all the requirements that are checked via test cases, such that no functionality is unchecked during software testing. This is the most important statement in this slide, or rather in the whole RTM body of body of overall understanding, right? So I'll read it again. The main purpose of RTM is to validate all requirements are made, all requirements are checked, and via test cases such there is no functionality which is unchecked or left built, right, during software testing. If we are in middle of development, I'll make sure the next functionality which has to be released in a given product marked as a known defect or known shortcomings depending on the label or nomenclature the company organization uses, right? Let's try to watch this RTM video. It's really good video, believe me, and let's try to learn from how industry believes the RTM this thing. Wait a minute, let me share that thing again. Oh man, stop share, start share.
Where the client changes the requirement, something so frequent in the practical world, and adds a field, recipient name, to the functionality. So now, you need to enter email ID and name to send a mail. Obviously, you will need to change your test cases to meet this new requirement. But now your test case suite.
This is an Excel sheet, right? This is a table. So in table, I have column names, column heading, and these are test cases which I need to execute. And then I basically note down the results in this, saying passed, failed, and if there are any remarks, if there are any exception, I'll mention there as well. And this RTM is getting shared, or this test run report is getting shared across the team. So this is the most important test reports which are shared across, even to the top management many times. So this is really important. This comes to BA because BA have envisioned the requirement. BA have given birth to this requirement. So he or she understand in depth how the color should be green. वो बोलते ना मेरा वाला green, उस type का scenario है. So we are thinking about what I think as the functionality. Okay, so is it working fine? No. The page has to be come back to you within some nanoseconds than some seconds. So I'll put the remark here. I'll say test pass, yes, test pass, but slow. It's underperformed or something like that. So I mentioned those things in a comment. Each of these words have been thoroughly analyzed by the testing team, and they'll make sure we are in line with the business requirement. So this is how the overall RTM thing works in an actual scenario.
Is very large, and it is very difficult to trace the test cases affected by the change. Instead, if the requirements were numbered and were referenced in the test case suite, it would have been very easy to track the test cases that are affected. This is nothing but traceability. The traceability matrix links a business requirement to its corresponding functional requirement right up to the corresponding test case.
This is actually we do, and Infosys also have this labeling mechanism. This is how Infosys does: B026, F048, and so on and so forth. So these are the normally standardization made at a CMMI level 5 framework, so that will label each and every such auditory artifact in a way that they can be identified depending on the name, they can be identified depending on the number of the sequence, and so on and so forth. So this traceability even travels horizontally as well as vertically. Horizontally in the sense what we are trying to do, which document we are trying to address, and where in the step. So if the number is lesser, we are in an early stage. If the number is more, we are in the latter stage, right? So these things does matter. Each number and letter does represent a meaning to it.
If a test case fails, traceability helps determine the corresponding functionality easily. It also helps ensure that all requirements are tested.
So we now understand, right, the importance of overall traceability and how traceability gets reflected in QA/QC way, right? So let's try to any confusion we'll revisit the RTM again next time in our next class, so that I'll make sure you understand it in a depth, right? And then we'll have a look at this video again as well, so that we understand it clearly and crisply how the overall traceability works, or traceability also makes sure if the product or project or support is ready to release to a client or not. This is basically what you can call a degree certificate in overall requirement, pass and failness of the product or project or service, clarity to go to the client or not. Could you understand? Could you relate to your thought process, or is it confusing for you? Do you have any questions for me at this moment?
Yes. Are we mainly going to be dealing with software, or is it going to be business? Or, I mean, most businesses are software related now, but I'm saying,
Yeah, that's a good question, Luga. Let me clarify these things. Normally, Guru School normally works with all IT major consulting company. So around 80% plus you're going to join an IT company, like mostly Infosys, TCS or Cognizant, or in line of those companies. So mostly you'll be working on software product, and so that's why this all nomenclature comes to you as a software product, right? There could be a chance like you might join an HR firm or a fashion firm, or any other firm which are less. But yes, you'll be what I can say, guided on those lines whenever that interview lands on your lap. Okay, so we'll make sure currently we are well aligned for IT organizations. So the maximum nomenclature is from IT organization, and that's why I want to only IT organization uses all these kind of tests. Otherwise, normally you have 2 or 3 maximum kind of test types you used normally day in day out. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to put my whole training in alignment with the IT fraternity. Does that answer your question, Rudra?
yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Thank you.
So, no problem. And this is a valid questions, because as as a most probably I believe you have a background of medical or healthcare domain, right? So if you go to if you go to a
Yes.
hospital, you have a bit of difference in understanding or labeling test cases. But yes, we will work on that whenever we are in the final stages, because right now if I start speaking on that, it will be more confusing than understanding. I know, I can understand. We've learned almost how many 6 to 7 different test runs, test run reports, right? So let's try to wrap it up here at this moment, and let's try to understand what we learn in the next class. And we'll revisit the requirement RTM philosophy. We'll have the look at that video again, and then we'll move to something called closure of business analysis process. Now we are in a final stage of understanding business analysis process, in a final stages of understanding overall how BA works, what actually BA does, what are his own, how can you use your caliber the best possible way, how can you use your domain in the best possible way, and so on and so forth, right? So this is our next class, is really important. Please do not miss that. Okay, so let's close on this topic right now. I know you'll have many more questions. Please do write down, on test case, test, quality control, and we can address it in the next class. Next class will be day after tomorrow, same time, 9:30 to 11, or 9:30 to 11, and we'll try to understand the most crucial part of actually thinking about how BA works with all this gamut whatever we learn now. And we'll close the QA/QC track, and we'll try to understand from you, how do you feel about a BA, what are the extra support which me as a trainer I can provide to you. Okay, and then how we can move to the next training capsule called Scrum, Agile Scrum, right? So that's a kind of overall progressive thing which we'll talk in our next class. So please, if you have any questions, do note down, and we can discuss it. Tomorrow we have a revision class, so all those who are joining new, they can, even all of you can join also, we can discuss it better, and that's make our life more easier to express ourselves, to learn in from some different angle, because BA is an evolving fraternity, right? So we are evolving as a person. The overall domain which we're going to work is also evolving, so let's try to be more adaptive, more learning. So I would really request if you could pull out your 1.5 hour tomorrow as well, so we can make ourselves better PA, right? And we'll try to understand from the revision perspective as well. There are quite a few new joinees which are going to get started from 15 December or 14 December. I couldn't recall the exact date. So we'll learn with them as well, right? And that class will go, I think, till February and all. But let's try to learn as much as we can, and let's try to build a thought process with clarity. If you have any doubts, please do write down. You can WhatsApp me, or you can keep it ready to discuss in the training. Discuss in the training is better, because then everybody can understand from your difficulties, right? And please don't feel bad about your question. Don't feel like it's simple question. Keep throwing, because we'll learn all together. That's how I feel as a trainer. I'm open for questions. I like testing. I like questions, because that's the way. Even I'm feeling short on explaining something, I can explain in depth, and that's how we should work. We should learn together, right? That's what we call collaborative learning. You learn about collaboration more in Agile. Believe me, Agile is one of the best philosophy evolved as far as project management goes, and we'll learn that thing as a next step. Any questions for me at this moment?
Can I talk to you after everyone leaves?
Come again, please.
Can I talk to you after everyone leaves? Or this could help them too, but
I couldn't hear you, ma'am. Could you speak louder?
I was saying, okay. So when you say matrix, right? The plural of matrix is matrices.
Matrices. Okay. So sorry, sir. Let's not go to a level where French, start farting with the British.
Okay.
I'm an American. I normally speak like American, but I believe we used to call them matrices in enterprise rent-a-car. So there could be enterprise rent-a-car have too many French. Sorry for that. I forgot to mention that. Okay. So I believe you're right. Yes, and I really what you can say, respect you for bringing such cliches, because these does matter a lot whenever you try to do perform in the interview. So we do try to pay a special attention to your pronunciation as well. And I think you are the right person to bring out this, because the way you have learned, you have the complete American educational environment for your learning, right? Am I right in that scenario?
Yes.
So you are the very right person to make us learn such things, and I'll be kind of attendee and you are kind of trainer in for all such matters. Believe me, I respect you as a person. I respect your upbringing. There's nothing wrong to learn different way of saying it and pronouncing it. But yes, sometimes people might find it offensive. So let's keep our idea and mind open and ask questions. That's what I'll say. I normally try to pronounce it as a matrices, but I'm okay or fine with you if you point that thing to me again as well. Please don't think like it's really difficult thing to say. I don't feel what you can say threatened, or what you can say. I feel I'm quite open in learning. I learn new things, and if there are any other way of saying something, it's good. Let's try to understand it together. That's how I want to put it. I really respect bringing these things to me. Thanks a lot, Rudra. And if anybody in the sense, means we all work in a different state of life. So if anybody feel like you couldn't understand a word, please bring that up, so that we can discuss within team, and so that we can all learn. So Rudra, if you could please pronounce those again, so that we all can learn. Could you please?
So plural of matrix is matrices.
Matrices, right?
Yes.
Okay, sure. And I normally use as a matrices. So yeah, so please pardon me for that. And this is not wrong or right thing, but this is kind of the way we should adapt to in a given culture. Okay, so let's keep ourselves open as we move from India to US. We might move to France, we might move to Italy. Believe me, I have learned many things in Yugoslavia. I was in Belgrade, the birthplace of Nicholas Tesla, and I learned so many good things about that culture, and those are really hardworking people. We will discuss it sometime. I know it's really great to know. Okay, to start with, these are the most handsome and beautiful people in Belgrade. They spend almost 6 to 7 hours on exercises daily. They at least swim 4-5 lanes. So they are very lean. They are really handsome because they are from the Russian descendant. So they have really good light blue eyes. those slit color hairs. So as in personality, those are the most handsome people individuals I've ever met. Believe me. And these guys are so hardworking. Like you feel ki they are lazy. Means Indians, I might say they are lazy because when I work with them, they are really, really forthcoming in, putting some extra efforts. And I might explain these things sometimes to you. Means it was really great learning for me as well there, because their pronunciations are very different, because the way these Russians pronounce it, it's very different from Chinese or British for that matters. So they have their own way of pronouncing as well. So as an individuality, if you're open, you'll learn more. Believe me, the way I come from. Okay. So thanks Rudra for bringing that up. Thanks a lot. Anybody else have questions?
No sir, आज बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ाई हो गई but.
नहीं बहुत ज़्यादा तो नहीं ठीक. Okay, no problem. So we'll end here. Please don't worry. And I'm with you, and we will revise if in case there's a need to. But please feel free to suggest.
Do we do this testing, or we'll make SRS and FRDs, and this testing will be done by the QAs, or we do these?
That's right. That's right. The testing will be done by QA and QC guys.
Okay, फिर ठीक है.
So आप जब इदम नमः बोलोगे, what you'll say? ये मेरा नहीं है, ये आपका काम है. No, we are in an advisory capacity, but yes, we need to make sure they are testing the requirements, and that's why this traceability is play an important part. We need to make sure they will check the requirements and the product which we have developed are in line with the requirement. नहीं तो क्या होता है, आप green बोलोगे, वो घास वाला green बनाता है rather than light green. So we need to make sure whatever we work as an organization, as a team, are in line with the requirements, and we work for satisfaction of our client, right? So yes, that result should be correctly implemented, embossed in the overall all of our documentation, and it should result in our work as well. That's what the most important part.
So QA part comes before, so QA is everywhere. After BA's SRS is done, then the QA comes. Once the production is done, let's say for normal word I'm using, once the production is done, then also before delivering it to the shareholder or stakeholder, then the QA testing will be done it again.
No, there are different tests and testing times, right? And we have different test cases or different phases of test runs. So we have something called unit testing, module testing, and then we have user acceptance testing, and before that we have regression testing or sanity testing. So these labels do refer to different stages in testing. Okay, so we have these different teams for this testing. So there's no single team which tests everything, because in case Ravindra Pandey forgets to test something, the next person will test that thing. This is how we check it. We check it again. We do it, some extra checking, so that to make sure we acquire the satisfaction which we intended to acquire. And we talked about that pair programming in Agile. Do you recall? Pair programming walks an extra mile, saying I have a tester just beside the developer. So even there'll be an analysis tester besides you who will test each and every document you make word by word.
Okay.
So that's a kind of testing maturity we have acquired, and it's still evolving. Means there are certain special test labeling test processes implemented to make sure we shouldn't creep the requirement, we shouldn't deviate from the requirement. And this is the addition or evolution of the software industry or the other industry as well. Depends on the criticality, depends on the cost involved, depends on the what I can say importance of the product involved. So like Corona, right? We are stuck in testing. Believe me, if you can ever think of that, try. Okay, let's start to discuss this thing in the next class. How do you think Corona testing is helping or obstructing our medicines? Let's try to discuss that. Let's think on that. I think this is the right time to discuss such thing. And on that light, we'll discuss RTM. Okay. So let's try to each and everybody spend some time, 10-15 minutes, try to think, is the quality control on coronavirus, is it hampering the progress or is it supporting the progress? This is like saying Trump is good or bad. Let's not go there. Let's not make it political. let's make it as an, from a development or business analysis perspective. Okay, so we'll spend some time on understanding, and if I forgot, please mention this. We are supposed to discuss this, and this will make sure as a business analyst how I should think, even for a healthcare domain, even for other domain, how should I think in terms of quality control, and what are my contributory remarks as in BA to this QA/QC, partygram. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, we can do
Great.
that.
Yeah, so let's close on that chapter right now. Please, think it through how we can contribute to the end product, right, as in BA, and that's how we should be progressive. Okay, does anybody have any questions, confusion for me at this moment?
No, sir, I'm good.
Great. I believe everybody is good and everybody will be good. Okay, chalo then. We'll close on that chapter right now. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
You have a great night. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.